Hi, I'm Dr. Dan Beilin, fortifyhealth.com. I know you're all concerned about the coronavirus, of course. I have been consulting several times a day with my teachers and colleagues from all over the world. As you know, I'm originally a physiologist at UCLA and UC Davis in gastroenterology and neurology, and I've been in private practice boosting people's immune systems for about 35 years in the Santa Cruz area. Coronavirus is nothing new. It's been known about for about 50 years. It's within the last week, cases have doubled and tripled. The deaths have doubled and tripled in Europe much faster than we ever expected. It's much more serious than a flu, a regular flu. It's much more serious than SARS or MERS. And anytime you hear, well, it's not as bad and people die from the flu every year, this is something different. It's got a different DNA structure. It's been sequenced by several bodies, the Chinese, the Americans, and the Germans as well. But we can fortify our immune systems now in ways that are specific towards these types of viruses. We don't have anything yet directed exactly at this particular viral version because it's never been seen before by humans. And so what we can do is we can take from all of the research in phytochemistry, 60% of all drugs originally come from herbs. And so there are some herbs that have been tested against the coronavirus directly and found extremely good benefit. So also there are certain drugs that may be helpful in building your resistance to this so that if you become in contact, now some people have tested positive for the virus and are symptom free and they don't feel anything at all. And then there's the ones that do have symptoms and they're mostly surviving. So all we can do is take action right now in educated ways and specific strategies that let's take a look at our action plans. We need to take supplements to stimulate and regulate our immune integrity. There are plenty that are out, but we want to do specifics for viral and these particular viruses. You have to be careful when you're treating the immune system that you don't overstimulate it in case we need it later on. In other words, we take a lower dose of things now as preparation and preventive. And then if we start to develop the first symptoms, there are some immediate things we can do to come on a lot stronger against this particular viral strain. So one thing that is very important for everyone to know is that your diet highly influences your matrix or your chemistry, your internal chemistry, and all the connective tissue and all the oxygen metabolism and all the ways that we are able to correctly utilize energy for all of our systems in diet. The best diet is proven to be the ketogenic diet. You can also try fasting for 3 days, and you could do that every 2 weeks. So that would be making sure that you drink a lot of water. This whole thing is if you're subjected to someone that's infected and the virus were to come onto your skin or in your nasal passages, the best treatment for that is drinking water to try to wash it down to the stomach, also to use a neti pot. And there's one particular substance that's extremely good with that, and it's called Hypochlorous Acid. There are different brands and versions of this. It's called Hypochlorous, HOCl. And this is something that is like Clorox in its ability to be antiseptic, antiviral, antibacterial, but it's so gentle that you can spray it even in your eyes. So I recommend you spraying all surfaces, your cell phones, your computers, with a slight spray, wiping it off. This is the one element that is the best sanitizer. You should have purified water. You should buy extra water in case there's some interruption to your own water. So, and then you should have at least 8 glasses at 8 ounces or 10 ounces each per day. With a half a lemon would alkalize your system to make you even stronger. Dehydration is your enemy. The virus goes into the lungs more easily the less hydrated you are. And if you were ever to have lung complications with the fibrosis that's developing, the pneumonia that we're seeing, then you will be in big trouble if you do not have enough electrolytes that balance your fluids, because you may be at a loss of fluids that you need to do all of your internal processes and make the kidneys and lung surfaces to the best shape. The other is vitamin C. Vitamin C, I like ascorbate, but ascorbic acid is fine. And as a preventive plan, and I'm going to tell you what to do in a preventive way. And then if you have any first symptom like a fever, a cough, a malaise, something hits you, this virus may take a week to 2 weeks to even 22 days to be symptom free, and then all of a sudden it hits you over the head. If the hitting over the head happens, you should double everything I'm suggesting. And there's a couple of different things to use, and you should be taking more things. You should try to, if you're not ready to go to the hospital, or if it's overbooked and you can't be seen, you should look somewhere where you could receive some therapies such as ozone therapies and vitamin C therapies, and possibly ultraviolet therapy in the blood. There's a few doctors that might do it. I don't do it myself. And then the other is vitamin D. Everyone needs to go out and buy 6 months worth of vitamin D taken at 10,000 units 5 days a week. It's always a good thing, or sometimes a good thing with some vitamins and products, to take a pulsed dose. That means 5 days a week, 2 days off, because the immune system tends to habituate and get used to things, and then it's kind of like it gets addicted to it and doesn't react as well. So taking a break of 1 or 2 days is always a benefit, and then going back to that 10,000. If you were to be symptomatic, you increase it to 30,000 per day. It's D3 is not toxic, contrary to what people fear. We in my field have treated patients with vitamin D at much higher doses for short periods of time, but you can do 10,000 for an extended period of time. The other is elderberry extract, which you can get as a tea, or you can get it as different things at your health food store. There, it's a liquid, or you can heat it and make a nice warm elderberry extract warm drink to drink a couple of times a day. It's specific against virus. So that's the introduction, and now we're going to go into some of the more details about preparing your body to fight off the first exposure to this virus. Washing your hands, of course, is a great thing to constantly do. We're often not conscious of all the things that we touch. Like, we'll wash our hands in the bathroom, and then we'll go and touch the doorknob to the bathroom and reinfect ourselves. So we've got to be a little bit anal about how we're proceeding with keeping our sprayer and our hands clean. And our nasal passages, I would highly recommend you get a nasal sprayer and use this hypochlorous acid. And you could also use some colloidal silver, but it's not as effective against this. Silver is good against bacterial infections, not as much about virus. But the ketogenic diet, some fasting, and the other very important element is sleep. If you don't get at least 7.5 hours of sleep, you should now change that habit. There's nothing that is more helpful to the regulation of the body. There's different types of microorganisms in the brain The brain is its own microbiome. It houses many fungi, bacteria, strains. They think this might be behind Alzheimer's and other diseases. So we want to make sure that the detoxification of the brain that occurs during sleep is something that's complete. And so if you only have 6 hours of sleep, you should at least meditate for 30 to 45 minutes per day to make up for that sleep. One of the things that can help with sleep is CBD. We use a very high grade pure CBD. And the other is melatonin. Melatonin is extremely helpful, even in small amounts, like 2 to 5 milligrams per night. Melatonin used in higher amounts actually fortifies the immune system to some extent. Next is vitamin D. You can potentiate the vitamin D receptors in the body. That means that it'll take in more vitamin D. If I have any damage to my receptors, and we all have a little bit of damage due to chemicals and glyphosates and pesticides and things we've been subjected to, take colostrum. Colostrum is a vital element that's found in mother's milk that gets transferred to the baby to initiate various immune processes. And they've discovered that colostrum potentiates the vitamin D receptor. Now, there's different types of vitamin D, and it doesn't matter what brand, what type, 10,000 units per day, along with vitamin A. Now, this is a special micellized version of vitamin A, and it doesn't matter if it's micellized or if it's in small capsules. Vitamin A in a huge dose could be toxic to the liver, but in the doses that we're recommending, it keeps the lung tissue, which is called the alveoli, which is necessary for oxygen exchange, and the victim of this fibrosis that sets in with this virus. Vitamin A protects the lung tissue. But you have to remember one thing, that in the initiation of the fibrosis that this virus causes, it causes a histaminergic, that means it's like a histamine, like almost like an allergy inflammatory reaction to the lung tissue. And that swells and accumulates fluids, and soon the fluids will act as a pool to bacteria, and then you begin to get into fields of pneumonia, which can kill you. So what do? We take a low dose of a natural antihistamine. And one of the best is quercetin. Here we have activated quercetin. This is very much like vitamin C. It's a bioflavonoid that I use in all my allergy patients, and it's kind of keeping your levels of the reactivity, creating the histamines to a minimum, so that you're actually ensuring a maximum amount of protection to the lung and to that environment that still has the exchange integrity of the being able to accumulate the oxygen that you need. So we also use something, I use Aller Response that has quercetin in it, and it has a few other products. You can use either one. Now there's something on the lung that's called surfactant that keeps the alveoli kind of lubricated so that it can move in and out. And you need something to keep making sure that that surfactant does not go away. And one of the best products that I've seen is called Immucyst, and you just can take a few drops twice a day, and that can keep the integrity of the lung so that you will decrease the potential for this destruction of the lung tissue. There are other products that we use as antihistamines. This one has N-acetylcysteine turmeric, which is an anti-inflammatory, which is something that we want a low level of. If we start to get this virus, we want to boost this anti-inflammatory supplements by triple. This also has bromelain, which is one of my favorite anti-inflammatories. Now, when we talk about fighting viruses, there's zinc and zinc lozenges. I would go out and buy, and I know they all sold out in no time, the zinc lozenge, and I buy enough for about 3 or 4 months of taking 1-3 times a day, because when the virus first gets inhaled, it's around the mouth, and the zinc lozenge kills virus. And then I would use as a nasal spray that hypochlorous acid as a nasal spray. Next is we can also have a nasal spray in terms of zinc, so we can get it that way. One thing that's very nice is that there's a vitamin C that is called liposomal, and liposomal attaches whatever molecule it is to a fatty acid, and that way it's taken in better by our cells, because our cells all have a bilipid or a fatty membrane that allow for maximum absorption of vitamin C. So this vitamin C, that's liposomal vitamin C, and there's a couple of companies that make it. You just Google liposomal vitamin C, and you'll be already into getting a maximized dose of vitamin C into your bloodstream. You can do IV vitamin C's with your local doctors if they do that, but this is another way to get almost as powerful a dose. Another herb is licorice extract, which has been shown to be antiviral. There are several combinations. This is called Virusure, and it has neem, which is a very interesting African and Indian herb that kills all kinds of microorganisms. If you ever get a parasite in these countries and you start taking neem, it works about 60% of the time. This also incorporates olive leaf extract. Olive leaf extract is a very specific antiviral chemistry. And so if you want to just go out and get an olive leaf extract, it's very valuable. There's oregano oil that you could use a drop in your mouth a couple of times a day. There's thymus extract that may fortify your white cells. And then, of course, there's the homeopathic remedy that's been recommended by the Indian government. So the Indians have medical schools in homeopathy that are 6-year programs, and they're very serious medicine. They even do some surgeries. It's taken a lot more seriously than it is here, and there's a lot of research behind it. And homeopathy actually works in a way that the hormones work, and that you only need a little tiny molecule to initiate a cascade of events that can be directed in certain ways. So the Indian government has come out and said that this remedy called Arsenicum album, now this is not arsenic, but it was originally taken from a white arsenic and then diluted. This one is diluted 1 in 130 times. So it's like 1 and 30 zeros, or 1 0 and 30 zeros. That's the concentration. But what happens in homeopathy, they break apart the original substance. The bonds that have energy in them get released into the solution, and you're actually using the solution that's imprinted with the information. This is normally used for food poisoning, but the Indians have said that this is the #1 preventive remedy. The other remedy that is for first signs is called Justica. And these things are, you can email our office. We can send you any of these supplements. And I've specially created two Chinese herbal blends, and the herbs come from America. We're concerned about Chinese medicine because of the soil in China is not very clean. There's a lot of lead in the soil, so we like to use the same plants. And so numbers of companies have come and grown the plants here in pristine organic conditions. So the first herbal extract is called CV1, and that's for prevention, and it incorporates 3 herbs that have, and all of these have been verified with the literature. That means that we've done a heavy investigation into these herbs and made sure that they are well identified with being directed at coronaviruses. Now, that may not affect this virus, but it's a healthy guess that it will have some activity against this virus because it's in the same family. We don't, as I want to tell you this again, it's a type of disclaimer, and I'm not saying that any of this will cure, treat in any way this particular strain. We're only taking very educated guesses based upon scientific research. And I'm originally a scientist, and I've participated in probably 10 studies that have resulted in technologies we use today, both in the field of neurosurgery and gastroenterology. So I kind of know when I can identify the correct herb that might be effective. So we're using one called Isatis scutellaria and the licorice root, and that's the preventive. And then in the case of first indications of the disease, then we have another one called CV2, and that's using an herb that has actually able to not let a virus land in the alveolar cell, and it kind of doesn't let the receptor work towards the virus. It inhibits that. That's called sparganium. And then we also incorporate it with celandine, lomatium, and houtunia. Those have all shown in the literature, and we have the papers on that if you want references. There's one other herb that I just want to mention, and that's andrographis. And if you can possibly find that in your health food store or online, andrographis. This is an Ayurvedic herb or an Indian herb. It's also used in China, protects respiratory pathways, acts as an antiviral by inhibiting, and it's called the EVD68 RNA replication, thereby disarming the virus. So andrographis, you take 3 tablets a day in the preventive program, and then upon first symptoms, then you'd take 3 or 4, 3 times a day, and that would be your best protection. So you need to get yourself a few of these things. I think the CV1 and 2 are very important, that vitamin D and A, that they're taking at their proper dose. If your doctor says, oh no, 10,000 units a day of vitamin D is not good for you, ask him if he has treated people with that, because we are part of a large group of about 4,000 doctors that have used doses up to 100,000 units for a period of 3 months, saying no hepato or liver toxicity. So this is vitamin D3. Now D2 is a different story. That's more toxic, but we don't use that. And then the vitamin C every day, the selenium at 400 micrograms per day, and then an anti-inflammatory with an antihistamine like quercetin, and then the andrographis. So I am available through the internet at fortifyhealth.com. I'm Dr. Dan Beilin. I have a clinic in the Davis area. I have a clinic in the Los Angeles area. I'm not sure. I think that we'll have to do things by Skype and by phone for the next 3 months. But we are making sure that we have enough product for most of the calls that we'll be getting, and we'll be there to help you in every way we can. So thank you very much for joining us. I'm Dr. Dan Beilin, and we hope the best for you in the coming months. Thank you.